Hey, Curtis,
Hey Oz,
I hear you got a movie for us this week.
I do have a movie this week. This week we're watching The Foot Fist Way plus Kung Fury with a whole lot of Interstellar and just a pinch of a chorus line. This week we're watching Land of the Lost.
A whole lot of Interstellar. I could see where this movie rubbed off on it.
Yeah.
It's like you had. It's like there was that wave of movies there in like the late '90s, early 2000s, where there were like two volcano movies out at the same time,
Yep.
and two shark movies out at the same time.
Mhm.
I could see where Land of the Lost and Interstellar would have been like, we went to the wrong movie. I meant to go to this one.
It took me an hour and a half to realize that, oh, that's Will Ferrell, not Matthew McConaughey.
This isn't Interstellar. Welcome,
Boy, what was I thinking?
Welcome back to Let's Talk About Flicks, the weekly podcast where we take a monthly theme and satisfy it with a topic. I'm one of your hosts, Oz.
I'm the other host, Curtis.
And before we get going, we do want to give a shout out to Patreon subscribers Don S., Aaron A., and Mandy K. Thank you for your monthly patronage. Go ahead, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe. It helps with the algorithms.
Algorithms.
And so, we are here week 3 of bad movies based on TV shows.
Yes, we are.
And this is a bad movie based on a TV show.
It fits the quota.
So success in your pick for this week's movie.
Thank you.
Land of the Lost. It's a movie.
It is a movie. It has its moments.
Yeah.
It does have some fun moments, but overall, bad movie.
Yeah, it's this was the first of 3 movies I watched yesterday. I got up and watched this early because the kids and I wanted to watch Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, great movie.
Before we went and watched Across the Spider-Verse.
Mm.
So we had a double treat of Spider-Verses yesterday, but not before I started with Land of the Lost.
It's good palate cleanser before you dive into and across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I wanted to keep with my theme of interdimensional movies. So
there you go.
And this was the one I started
the
with.
Land of the Lostiverse.
Right. This is the one I started with. So, yeah. There's a very short cast of characters.
Yeah, not a whole lot of people in this movie.
I'm going to go ahead and name the entire cast.
Why not? Go for it.
We have Will Ferrell as Dr. Rick Marshall.
Boy, do
we. Who is a character from the TV show Land of the Lost. This is they did a pretty good job of keeping the cast names accurate. Anna Friel, an actress who I always thought was like Kate Beckinsale or Michelle Moynihan, or like looking at the cover art, it's just that pose she has. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not her at all. It's Anna Friel. She's playing Holly Cantrell. Again, like this movie could be confused with Interstellar. She could have been confused with one of the others. So, and Danny McBride rounds out our trio of main actors, playing Will Stanton. Basically, he's playing Danny McBride.
He's playing Danny McBride. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, he's Danny McBride as Danny McBride. Lonely Island's own Jorma Taccone. I feel so, because I like Jorma. I do.
He's fun.
But not in this one. He's playing Chaka, which...
Chaka.
Yeah, not a lot of dialogue out of Jorma.
Except when he's singing.
John Boylan plays a character named Enoch, which I know you'll get to. Leonard Nimoy plays the Enoch counterpart, Zarn, which I know you'll get to. We have Matt Lauer playing Matt Lauer. And Ben Best rounds up as Ernie. So honestly, that's like everybody in the movie.
That's it.
Yeah.
You got some Sleestaks, you got a T-Rex, but that's really it. Very short cast for this movie.
It's a short one. Well, and must have been well paid because the budget for this movie was $100 million.
It took a lot of money to get the right concoction for fake dinosaur urine.
I guess so. Yeah. So
$20 million on fake dinosaur urine.
I wouldn't surprise me because box office bomb.
Yeah. This movie did not do well. Coming off a string of Will Ferrell, kind of mid to late aughts movies. Yeah, was it Blades of? Was it Blades of? I almost said Blades of Steel, Blades of Glory.
Blades of Steel is a sweet game.
Yeah. Anchorman was in there. Talladega Nights. Step Brothers, I think, was right before this.
Semi-Pro.
Yeah, Semi-Pro.
And then Land of the Lost. Yeah,
This
movie only made back about 69% of its budget.
Yikes.
Which, to be honest, like, prior to this movie, I don't know. I don't know of a lot of Land of the Lost fans. Like, I feel like this came out in that era where we're going to make a movie based on an old TV show. Mm-hmm. Because Star Trek is successful. And it's like, okay, this Lost in Space was another one that it's like...
It worked for Starsky and Hutch. It's
right.
got to work for Land of the Lost.
It's like it worked for Starsky and Hutch because that movie was funny. Like, that movie wasn't trying to be Starsky and Hutch. It was like, look, we got to be something somewhat original. Let's get Snoop in here. Let's get the chemistry between Stiller and Wilson. This will work. And it did. It was fun. Land of the Lost, no.
Nope.
I don't think anybody was clamoring for when do we get a Land of the Lost movie?
Well, this was, again, just kind of referencing those movies. This is kind of when, like, the whole pitch, the Hollywood pitch was, imagine Will Ferrell as a 70s anchorman. Yeah. Imagine Will Ferrell as a NASCAR driver.
Yeah.
Imagine Will Ferrell as a figure skater.
Yeah. Let's imagine Will Ferrell as a scientist with Danny McBride as Danny McBride. Like,
sold.
Yeah. Quantum paleontologist is what Dr. Quantum paleontology.
Quantum paleontologist. The old QP. What'd you get? What's your doctorate in QP?
Yeah.
Quantum paleontology.
Which means there must be some university that offers a doctorate in quantum paleontology.
Yeah. Probably an online for-profit.
Yeah.
It was DeVry.
Yeah, TV VCR repair, computer programming, quantum paleontology.
Quantum paleontology. TV VCR repair.
All right, you go ahead and take this plot.
Yep, let me get to the plot of 2009's Land of the Lost. We open on a panicked man in a spacesuit. My coordinates say I should be in White Sands, New Mexico. And then a Tyrannosaurus Rex eats him.
Mm-hmm. It was a fun opening.
It was.
It's kind of a cold open. They jump right into it. So,
yeah, this very panicked man in a spacesuit, and then gets eaten by a T-Rex because, sure, why not?
Yeah, because spacemen and dinosaurs don't mix.
Yeah, Interstellar.
Yeah,
because then we cut to the Today Show with Matt Lauer. Boy, this part of this movie did not age well.
No,
featuring Matt Lauer.
Yeah.
And Will Ferrell as Dr. Rick Marshall talking about quantum paleontology. Marshall says, I'm going to solve the energy crisis, and it comes down to two words, time warps.
Yep. It was a slow news day on the Today Show.
Yeah, very, very slow news day. Lauer is very annoyed with Marshall the entire time. It's just very, very combative. Marshall goes to light a pipe while he's on stage. And Marshall says, I'm looking for funding so I can explore parallel dimensions, which kind of leads into the real plot here. Lauer insults Marshall. Marshall storms off, and then Matt Lauer eventually sprays him with a fire extinguisher.
That's fun.
Sure.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. We cut to Marshall then giving a presentation, I'm guessing maybe a little bit of time later, about harnessing tachyons, and which would then allow him to warp time and space. Turns out he's presenting to a group of like middle schoolers.
Yeah, it's 3 years later.
Is it 3 years later?
Yeah, we even got like the title card on the screen.
I didn't even bother taking that down.
3 years later.
He's designed the tachyon amplifier, which allows him to travel sideways in time where past, present, and future meet.
Okay.
Wow, deep sci-fi here.
It's pure coincidence that our last two movies have required some sort of prototypical dimension traveling.
Uh-huh.
I was waiting for Gwildor to show up, and that's not how you do it.
I am going to reference something later on. There's another little bit at the end of both this and Masters of the Universe, last week's movie, for those that missed it. There's two characters that end their respective movies on a very, very similar note.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Very similar.
Very similar. So again, the lights come on. He's presenting to a group of middle schoolers who then insult and ridicule him. He kicks the kids out, and then Holly Cantrell walks in. She studied his work at Cambridge. She presents a fossil that's millions of years old with an imprint of a modern-day lighter on it. So
yeah. Well, and it had to have been Cambridge because she's British.
Yeah, she's British, so she went to Cambridge. She's wearing a MacGuffin crystal around her neck as well.
Yeah. That's what Dr. Rick Marshall even calls it. Is that a MacGuffin crystal? As a matter of fact, it is.
It is. I got it at the Crystaltorium. And he then gives a Will Ferrell non sequitur. Captain Kirk's nipples.
Oh, I know.
As his lighter fits in the fossil.
It annoyed me, actually. Like,
yes.
It was fun in Anchorman.
Yes.
And I feel like this is what we have to do with Will Ferrell now.
Funny non sequitur.
Like Schwarzenegger comes into the police station in Terminator and tells them I'll be back. This is what Schwarzenegger does now. And so, it's just,
it doesn't work when Adam McKay isn't there to feed him funnier lines.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no Adam McKay in this cast list. So.
No, he's nowhere to be found.
And I don't think you'll ever find them together again.
Probably not. Apparently, they had a really ugly falling out.
They did. It was because McKay was doing that Lakers TV show, and Will Ferrell wanted to play Jim Buss, and Adam McKay cast John C. Reilly instead. And Ferrell was like, "We're done. I'm done with you." And I'm like, well. I think that was probably fair, of McKay, because I like you just fine, Will Ferrell. I don't think you have the dramatic chops.
And then he cast John C. Reilly, another actor from kind of that same stable, which probably had to sting a little bit as well.
Oh, I bet it does. But again, Reilly has those. He has the rage.
Riley's a better actor.
Yes.
Will Ferrell's great. Don't get me wrong. I love me some Will Ferrell, but John C. Reilly is a better actor.
Yes, very, very much so. It's just, and so they fell out. I think Adam McKay got a little too big for his britches too, though.
Well, he started doing more serious stuff.
Yeah,
too.
He went very serious stuff, which was fine. I saw Don't Look Up. It was fun, but yeah, it's like he moved on to a new group of friends, and Will Ferrell's like, but what about me?
They're like high school pals.
Yeah. What about me?
One goes off to college, one doesn't.
Yeah. One becomes a quantum paleontologist, and one doesn't.
One is denying the Human Torch a bank loan. So the next day, Holly wakes up a passed out Marshall in his science office, and he's finished the tachyon amplifier, Oz. And it plays I Hope I Get It from a chorus line.
Yeah.
But
not before we get another Will Ferrell thing where he name drops several just very common lower to middle class restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Will Ferrell thing of, like in Talladega Nights where it's like, let's go to Applebee's.
Yeah.
And what was it? And Step Brothers where he's like, we had a good weekend at the Home Depot. It's like, oh man, I've heard of those places too. This is funny.
I've been to Home Depot. I get that.
Oh my god, all those restaurants you've been to, I've had. I went to Arby's.
I've eaten good in the neighborhood. Hey mom.
Right.
I'm basically Will Ferrell now.
Yeah. We're the same.
I know. I've been through a buffet at Ruby Tuesdays. So they decide to field test the tachyon amplifier, Oz, by going to New Mexico. Cut to New Mexico. They pull into a roadside tourist trap run by Danny McBride's Will Stanton.
Yeah, Devil's Canyon Mystery Cave.
Yep. And wow, Oz, the tachyon readings are off the charts.
Oh my gosh.
Lots of quantum paleontology going on here.
I don't know. Was there ever a chart of tachyons anyway, and then now this one's off the chart? I have a feeling this is the first time that tachyon amplifier has picked up a tachyon.
It's not on or off the charts. It's just charted.
Right. This one's off the charts. So you have referenced other charts that you've made. So, okay.
Danny McBride's character, Will Stanton, gets away with a lot of not PG-13 statements.
He really does, yeah.
Yeah. They go into, he makes a couple of them, as they go into this like tourist trapped water cave on a raft, and the tachyon meter starts going crazy.
Ooh,
it falls into the water, and they fall into a wormhole. They wake up in the sand under a hot sun, surrounded by artifacts that are present from all time past, present, and future, and under 3 moons in the sky. Will Ferrell looks around and says, "Do you know what this means? Matt Lauer can suck it."
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I thought you set us up and went another direction. That's comedy.
Yep. This whole movie is just shots at Matt Lauer.
Mm-hmm. Which,
and not the
be
right
fair,
kind of shots.
No,
yeah.
but to be fair, he
deserves it.
them. Yeah.
He does deserve it, Matt Lauer. They scare off 2 primates. They're about to kill a third, or who are about to kill a third. So 2 primates are attacking another one, and they run it off. And the surviving primate is Chaka, as you said, Jorma Tacconi's Chaka, who then proceeds to feel up Holly.
Yeah. As also does Danny McBride.
Yeah,
and
they all...
I don't think Will Ferrell... Did Will Ferrell get a cup?
I don't recall.
I don't think he did. But yeah, Chaka, it was... Because she did. She's, doing the whole me Tarzan, you Jane kind of thing.
Yeah.
But she's touching her breasts, which then Chaka has to touch her breast.
Yes, Chaka then takes that as permission to touch her chest.
As it, he's not aware of the customs. Like, okay, that's how it works. And then Danny McBride gets an opportunity because... It probably wasn't even scripted. He probably just did it.
I'm Danny McBride.
Right.
I'm Foot Fist Way.
Right.
Marshall introduces himself to Chaka as Dr. Rick Marshall, which I did find a little funny.
Yeah.
They then all 4 of them fall through a fissure and end up in a cave in front of a big green screen. Good thing that was there. A lot of green screen in this movie.
Yeah. Well, it being interdimensional, it gave the green screen a reason to be there.
Yeah.
Because it came from another dimension.
Marshall then sees the remains of the first scientist, and the T-Rex shows up, Oz. Mm-hmm. So Marshall, of course, insults the T-Rex and then also insults the Polish community.
Yeah. Again, it's with the whole brain's the size of a walnut.
Yeah.
They're idiots. I thought the Polish were idiots, but it's not. It's the T-Rex.
They end up hiding in a cave from a T-Rex. The T-Rex is too big to get through. I did find it funny. The T-Rex lobbed a giant walnut at the cave.
Just so you know how big a walnut really is here.
Yep. I love how the T-Rex is sentient enough to recognize when it's being ridiculed.
Right. It can't speak English, but he understands it.
Yeah, he gets it. Yeah. Later, Marshall tells the camera that they're going to eat Chaka if it comes to it, and how Bobby Flay would serve Chaka. Mm-hmm. Marshall is then contacted telepathically by an alien asking for help. Marshall then, of course, being the quantum paleontologist, runs off to help. They run into a big crystal, like some ruins with a big crystal in the middle, and they can hear the tachyons buzzing, Oz.
Yeah, because when they were transported from Earth, like to this dimension or whatever, they lost the tachyon amplifier.
Yes.
So that's really what they're seeking out is the tachyon amplifier.
They're trying to find it. Tachyon amplifier. Stanton then tells Holly that she should do something with the big crystal because the big crystal vibrates a lot. Again, he really gets away with a lot in this movie. I'm surprised some of these things made it through PG-13 censors.
Agreed.
Chaka panics. They interpret his statement as chorizo tacos, which I don't know why I did find that.
I did too. I did too.
Are you saying chorizo tacos? Because I'm hungry.
There were a couple different because it's like we've talked about it in different movies before. Movies like this where they just keep slinging jokes, and most of them aren't funny.
Yeah, but every once in a while,
every once in a while, something's going to come through. You're like, okay, that was kind of funny.
Chorizo tacos is kind of funny. The Sleestaks then come out. Pretty cool Sleestak design.
They are, yeah, I agree.
They come out and surround them. They used science to direct lights into the statue's eyes, opening up the crystals, which they escape into. So they literally enter the crystal, which is also a portal.
It's a good thing Dr. Rick Marshall knew exactly what to do.
Yes, yeah, there was a lot of quantum paleontology.
No hesitation. He just grabbed and
Mm-hmm.
redirected light. Yeah, and it worked.
So they're now inside another parallel dimension, and they meet Enoch, the being who contacted Marshall telepathically. Enoch says he's heard of Marshall. He saw the interview with Matt Lauer. He must have a great satellite feed there. And says the fate of the universe depends on Marshall. Enoch says the Zarn is using the crystals to conquer the universe, and the Zarn is coming for Earth. Enoch needs the tachyon amplifier, but he must remain there to protect the crystals. Stanton says, never trust a dude in a tunic.
That's right. It's one of the rules he lives by.
Yeah, I live by that rule. In the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, never trust a dude in a tunic.
Right.
So they got to find the tachyon amplifier, Oz. Marshall has collected some hadrosaur urine to mask their scent. He then dumps it on himself in a very, very elongated sequence of him dumping and ingesting dinosaur pee.
We get it.
Yes, yeah, next, okay. They come across an ice cream truck driver that's fallen from the sky. Apparently there's a spot, kind of like Thor Ragnarok is another movie that could have been worked in here with like the wormholes and things being sucked in and deposited and time kind of being a loose construct. They are then attacked by both a T-Rex and an Allosaurus, Oz. Marshall yells them to run in a serpentine direction, which doesn't work too well for him.
No, because they're pretty smart dinos.
They are. They then use a catapult to toss a canister of liquid nitrogen into the Allosaurus's mouth, the Allosaurus that explodes from the pressure. And it turns out that the Allosaurus had eaten the tachyon amplifier.
Oh, how coincidental.
So good thing that it was that dinosaur that they got to explode.
And it's a good thing the tachyon amplifier did not explode with it.
Yeah, wow. It blew up that dinosaur, but not the tachyon amplifier held together by rubber bands and, and rubber hoses. Of course, a pterodactyl that swoops down and grabs the tachyon amplifier because nothing can be easy for our group of heroes.
Drats.
Let's see. That night, Stanton tells Chaka that he's on a 6-year dry spell, and Holly, of course, can understand Chaka completely.
Yeah.
Chaka is indicating via Holly that in his culture the women serve the men, and he has a female harem, which gets Stanton's attention.
Right.
A couple large mosquitoes bite Marshall and drink. What I'm estimating is probably a dozen gallons of blood.
Almost all of his blood.
Yeah, drink all of his blood.
It was kind of a fun scene. Watching him pale as they keep cutting back and forth, and then
he starts yawning because he's so tired because he has no blood left.
Yeah, leans forward, and then you've got this like just gigantic bug.
Because there was first one on his neck. Yeah. Who drank a lot, and then he kind of slumps forward, and there's the one on his back that is filled with full with a couple of gallons of red Kool-Aid. They determined that the tachyon amplifier is in the volcano. That's where the pterodactyl went. They climb it up, and the amplifier is there, Oz, but it's surrounded by eggs.
How would a pterodactyl lay eggs on each of these? Which one comes up from the ground? Stalactite or stalagmite?
I think stalagmite come up from the ground.
But it's like that is some very comfortable placement of eggs. Like, good for you, pterodactyl.
Pterodactyls were known for their egg aim. Mm-hmm. That was something that's, again, science. It's a quantum physics, quantum paleontology thing.
They're in the same class as the end bosses in Super Mario Brothers 2.
Super Mario 2, underrated game.
Very underrated.
Super Mario 2, I know got a lot of hate because it was so different from the first Mario Brothers, and the third one gets a lot of love. But I always like Mario 2 because you could pick your characters,
and they all had different abilities.
Yeah, like Toad was the strongest, like he could pull things up from the ground the fastest.
Yeah, and Princess could fly. Luigi could jump the highest, and Mario was honestly most boring of the four.
Yeah, he was a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I usually played as Luigi in Mario 2.
I did too. There were some levels, though, you had to play with Princess.
Yeah.
Because you had to fly.
Let's see. So they get up in there. The amplifier's surrounded by eggs. Marshall dances his way to the amplifier as, was it more music from a chorus line plays.
Yeah.
They begin to hatch, but they get the amplifier and all is well.
Then he had to sing it because when he picked up the amplifier, the music stopped.
And then Chaka starts singing in English as well.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, kind of a fun little thing because you figure up until meeting them, that's the only English Chaka ever heard was.
But apparently he's familiar with the chorus line. So.
Yeah. It's Jorma. He has a musical background.
Yes. We then get a requisite drug sequences all along the Watchtower plays. Chaka gives Stanton and Marshall some kind of narcotic drink. Fun little scene. A gigantic crab walks up to the others.
Yeah, it was a fun scene.
And then falls through the surface into boiling water, and then they eat the gigantic
right.
crab. Stanton says he doesn't want to go home. And there's an extended scene of Stanton daring Marshall and Chaka to kiss each other, which was both disgusting and a little amusing at the same time.
It was. Like, I feel like this kind of non-plot driven, loose, like, improv is really where, like Ferrell and McBride shine.
Yeah.
And I thought this scene was probably the most, how do I want to play it? The most up their alley.
Sure.
Of just riffing and going, and it was fun.
Yeah, because it didn't have anything to do with the plot
exactly,
and the dumb script.
Yeah. You just got to.
Yeah.
I'll if it stays right here, I'll kiss him for free.
So while that's going on, Holly fires up the tachyon amplifier, which makes a big crystal appear, and she goes into it. She runs across a recording of the Zarn, the supposed bad guy, saying that Enoch has escaped custody. And the Zarn is then shot on camera by Enoch. So, twisteroo here, Oz.
Oh, no!
Enoch is the bad guy. And the Zarn was actually a good guy who Enoch slew. So, she gets She goes to warn the others, but of course is captured. Our other three, Chaka, Stanton, and Marshall, wake up all spooning each other. They enter the crystal and watch two Sleestaks make love and shed their skin.
And it's funny because it wasn't the first time in the movie where, like, Danny McBride was like, I think they're going to do something. Like he called what's going to happen, and of course, Will Ferrell's like, nah, I don't think so. And then of course it would happen. And then he's like, I think you're right. So yeah, I think they're going to get it on. I don't think they are.
So Stanton and Marshall then put on the shed Sleestak skin to sneak in. They find Holly in a cage surrounded by Sleestaks. They eventually free her. Holly kisses Marshall, and she said she's always wanted to do this because apparently Rick Marshall is attractive.
And
desirable.
Doctors are.
Dr. Rick Marshall. Enoch then appears with brainwashed Sleestaks because the Sleestaks, again, were anti-Enoch, but he's brainwashed them.
Right.
The T-Rex walks up, so everything's coming together here, Oz. Stanton says he's with Marshall anytime except for now. You got this one, pal.
All right.
The T-Rex and Marshall go to fight. Marshall drops his lighter and the T-Rex steps on it, therefore the imprinted fossil from before. Marshall does a fun little battle roll over to like a spear that he had dropped. And then pole vaults directly into the T-Rex's mouth. Like literally into the T-Rex.
Which, because that's been a running joke the whole time is Dr. Rick Marshall had one of those motivational posters with the black border, and it's like, and if like success, if something blah blah blah, if you don't make it, it's your own darn fault.
Yeah, and so he vaults while trying to inspire himself directly into the dinosaur.
Right into the dino's mouth.
So Marshall is supposedly dead. Holly then insults the T-Rex and says Marshall was her future as the T-Rex walks off. We then get the big climactic scene here, Oz, as Enoch summons a big crystal surrounded by Sleestaks. Holly, Stanton, and Chaka charge in, but are quickly captured. Marshall then arrives. He's not dead, Oz.
Nope.
He arrives riding the T-Rex, and together they take out the Sleestaks. Stanton says, you know what the coolest thing would be right now is if he slid down the T-Rex's tail Fred Flintstone style, which he does. He then does. Marshall says the T-Rex pooped him out. And they're now best friends because he speculates that he dislodged a blockage.
Yeah, that's why he was so grumpy.
That's why he was upset. Which I mean, I guess you can't blame the guy.
No.
Marshall then fist bumps the tiny T-Rex arm, and the heroes all jump into the crystal. They confront Enoch in the crystal. They fight Marshall. A portal opens, and I don't like Marshall and Enoch start insulting each other. Marshall goes, I wrestled at Purdue. And of course, right. Enoch knows Marshall. Goes, JV. that I think was my favorite line of the whole movie.
Yeah.
I wrestle at Purdue. Yeah, JV. And meanwhile, Stanton's in the background doing like a 9-year-old on the playground. Fight! Stanton misses a top rope elbow drop, causing a crystal to break. So everything's in flux, Oz. One of the crystals is broken. The universe is about to collapse. The multiverse is about to collapse.
Oh, no.
And Marshall grabs Holly's MacGuffin crystal necklace and sticks it in the place where the broken crystal was to keep the portal open. So Holly and Marshall escape back to Earth. Stanton decides to stay with Chaka and Chaka's people. Chaka and Stanton go back to the community, Chaka and Stanton go back to Chaka's community, and they're greeted by several topless women with hair in very specific places.
Thankfully, because at this point when I was watching, both my kids were up. And I was like, oh no, Danny McBride and topless women, this is not going to go well.
Yeah. We then get the epilogue closing scene here, Oz, as Marshall is back on the Today Show with Matt Lauer. Matt Lauer is clearly not having it, clearly was told to do this. Marshall is credited as a famed time traveler and as plugging his new book, his new tome called Matt Lauer Can Suck It. And that, folks, is 2009's comedy romp, Land of the Lost.
Yeah.
At this point in the show, Oz and I each give our own unique rating to the film we've been yapping about, in this case, Land of the Lost. Oz, how would you rate this flick?
I'm going to give it 4 tachyons.
4 tachyons?
Mm-hmm. And because we never saw a tachyon, I have no idea what kind of image I'm going to have to find for it.
I know they talked about tachyons a lot in Watchmen, so maybe Dr. Manhattan.
Oh, there we go. Oh, tachyon particles. It actually popped right up on Google.
My rating, I'm going to go with 26 gallons of hadrosaur urine. Because I'm pretty sure that's how much hadrosaur urine that Marshall harvested from the hadrosaurs. Next up, folks, we've got Outside Insights. Oz and I have been scouring the interwebs, looking for unprofessional reviews that tickle our funny bones, and we hope they tickle yours as well. Oz, what is your Outside Insight?
My Outside Insight is from Letterboxd, from Ague Guy.
Ague Guy.
Left May 30th of this year. 5-star review. A cinematic masterpiece that shouldn't be watched with those who have IQs lower than 180. The comedy in this movie is unmatched and will continue to be funny no matter how many rewatches have been made. In order to conduct this review, I decided to watch the movie for the 7th time, and boy, was it a ride.
Wow.
Will Ferrell as the main character was an amazing choice for the role. Seemingly unfit for the role as a scientist made it incredibly funny. The casting for this movie in general is something close to Jesus Christ himself. An amazing...
Wow. I didn't know he was a casting agent.
Yeah. An amazing movie, 5 stars.
Wow.
Yeah.
By Jesus Christ himself.
Yep.
He came down from heaven and bestowed his Holy Spirit on this movie.
What do you got?
Well, Oz, I'm going to bring 3 to the table.
Ooh.
A couple are a little shorter. I'm going to start with those. I couldn't narrow these down. The first one is just a couple sentences. This one is from M. Caserin from March 2021, all from the Internet Movie Database. This is a 10 out of 10 review.
All right.
Super funny, and I can't believe it came out over 10 years ago. I love this movie, and I always will. Just a fun, cozy Will Ferrell type movie. Let's give Will his roses while he's still here.
Okay.
So apparently this person believes that Will Ferrell will die any moment.
And when he dies, that's when we will start appreciating Will Ferrell.
Yes. You can't appreciate him while he's alive.
No,
it just doesn't work that way.
No.
My next comes from Pumpkin Man from June 2009. So this person saw it in the theaters and ran home. Land of the Lost is the first movie I've seen 3 times in the theater. I loved it that much. I can't believe so many people hate it. This movie is 1 billion times better than The Godfather. Oh. In my opinion, this is an awesome, incredible, fantastic, cool, hilarious, Oscar-worthy movie. I highly recommend Land of the Lost.
Wow. Has there been any movies you've seen 3 times in the theater?
Yeah, in my younger days, I recall seeing Crouching Tiger several times in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I saw the Star Wars and Lord of the Rings movies multiple times. Yeah, late teens, early 20s. I was a frequent theater goer.
So two for me. I remember when the original Scream came out. I saw that 3 nights in a row in the theater. And then Napoleon Dynamite I saw 3 times in the theater. Each time, I think you and I went once.
Uh-huh.
And then I took Becca, and then I took Brad.
Okay.
Because it was like, I got to see this again. So it was more like I have to take someone, like you have to see this movie.
Yes. How did Becca respond to it, out of curiosity?
I remember she being pretty mild, like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
Which, in all fairness, it is.
It is stupid, yeah.
Brad loved it. Like,
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, it's just right up our alley of, like, I can't believe something like this exists. So
how much you would have bet I could throw a football over the mountains?
Right? Yeah, I almost made a Napoleon Dynamite reference earlier when we were talking when Will Stanton's, never trust a guy in a tunic. All I could think of was like the 7 pillars of, like, fighting in that dojo, but there were really 8.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but, like, I think Danny McBride could have been a fit for Diedrich Bader's character.
Sure.
But I think Diedrich Bader nailed it. So I think I think McBride would have been a little too much for the Napoleon Dynamite universe.
Yes.
So what's your third?
Yeah, the last outside insight comes from also an 8 out of 10. Michael Larmer from December 2019. What some reviewers on here don't understand is that this was deliberately made in a 50s style, with cheesy characters and dubious special effects to mock that style. And they gave it a low rating because they don't understand this because they are thick. It is actually a very good sci-fi comedy. Will Ferrell does his usual hamming it up in the lead role very well. Anna Friel is excellent as his gullible and innocent fan scientist. Danny McBride is great as the stupid trailer trash guy, who, despite being a bit rough, has good intentions, and Jorma Taccone does a good chaka under all the hair. Direction is excellent. They keep it to the same 1950s formula almost throughout. Lighten up, reviewers. This is one of the best sci-fi comedies going.
Oof. That's a Land of the Lost fan.
Yeah, that's a stan. That's a Land of the Lost stan right there.
I was here before anybody.
Yeah. It's like seeing the indie band before they break through. I saw the Strokes before they made it big.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now you've heard of Blink-182.
I knew when they were Blink-181.
I remember when they were the Small Thing.
All right, folks, it's that point in the show you've all been waiting for, our signature segment, the 3-2-1. Folks, Oz and I have brought 3 goods, 2 bads, and 1 to the table regarding Land of the Lost. Oz, what are your 3 goods?
My 3 goods have nothing to do with the plot of this movie. My first one is early on when Marshall finishes teaching those middle school kids, and Holly comes in and he starts eating that donut stuffed with M&Ms. And then he just does that Will Ferrell thing where he just explains what he's doing. She's like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm eating a donut stuffed with M&Ms. This way, when you're done eating the donut, you don't have to eat M&Ms. And I don't know. I just the, like, that felt like very Adam McKay. Like, it wasn't, but just so, like, simple and depressing, but still, like, that's kind of funny.
I'm just saying what I'm doing.
Yeah, because it's almost like he's like, well, normally I eat donuts and then M&Ms, but this way I don't have, like, I'm saving time.
It's called efficiency, Holly.
Right. My second good is when they, I actually laughed out loud when they found that vibrating crystal, and then Will Stanton puts his hands on it and starts singing "Believe" by Cher.
Yeah. Do you believe?
Because one, it's just, again, kind of out of nowhere, and it was just funny. But two, I remember how much we hated playing that song at WHEN when we were forced to play Top 40, and we would just play that song like every week. And so that, it just, again, it kind of came out of nowhere, and it was just funny to me. And my third is the drug-induced scene between Chaka, Will, and Marshall. It just, Holly was gone. It was it was Danny and Will being themselves and riffing, and it was just fun. Like, the things the challenges they're coming up with, and the dares, and it was just eating the giant crab, and it was just a stupid scene, but it was funny. Yeah. So those are my three goods. What do you got?
My three goods, I'm going to start with some of the subtler humor, because there's a lot of not subtle humor in this movie. And again, it's very hit or miss. But some of the subtler humor, such as, like, when Marshall is insulting the T-Rex and the T-Rex just rolls its eyes. And then, like, when they're eating the big crab, somehow they give no explanation, but somehow they have a big lemon wedge as well.
Yeah. I missed that.
Yeah, there's a gigantic lemon wedge. They're like with two hands, like squeezing on the crab. My second good is, again, I mentioned this earlier. I teased this earlier, as they say in the business. That
in the business of video and audio podcast.
In the business of the Hollywood business. Last week, we did Masters of the Universe, and the Stanton character from this movie and the Lubick character played by James Tolkien from Masters of the Universe share very, very similar fates, in that they both choose to stay in the alternate world, and are then basically greeted as heroes and surrounded by hot babes from that universe. Lubick has hot babes around him. Stanton has hot babes around him.
I would have been. It would have been equally, like, I will say equally. I thought it would have been funnier if, like, they get back to Chaka's tribe and it was like Chaka's version of hot babes, like, instead of like overly sexualizing all these human women, like, you show up and it's just a bunch of Chakas, and then Danny just, Stan being like, just go with it,
whatever. Right. You win some, you lose some.
Right.
So that's my second good, which is more of just coincidence than anything else. My last good, humor me for a moment, Oz.
Yeah, absolutely.
This movie, I when we decided on this movie on this theme for the month, on bad movies based on TV shows, this was the first movie I thought of. And despite how bad this movie is, again, with some funny moments in it, this movie holds a very special place in my heart and in my wife's heart. Not to get too sentimental or anything right here, but my wife is a brain cancer survivor. And after her second craniotomy and round of treatments, she was hospitalized, for several days. And one of the movies on demand in the hospital was Land of the Lost. And, there was, at the time, this was like summer 2009, something like that, fall June. 2009. So, a couple months after it hit the theaters. And for whatever reason, it was the only comedy that was there. And therefore, my wife and I watched this movie at least a dozen times. And I'm not, I'm not fluffing that number up. At least a dozen times while we were in the hospital, and as she's recovering, because she just needed something fun and mindless. to help cope and help kind of distract from everything that was going on. So we ended up watching this movie a dozen times in the hospital. Nurses and the medical providers would come in and like roll their eyes like, "Oh, you're watching this again?" Like, "Yep, we are." There's
can't get enough.
Yeah. Here's hadrosaur urine again. Oh. So this movie in its own weird way helped support my wife and during her recovery, helped gave me some levity and balance as I supported her in the situation. So thank you, Land of the Lost, for what you did for our household and for my loving wife. So yes, that is my third good right there.
That's the best good we've had on any episode so far.
Thank you, Land of the Lost. All right, so those are my three goods. Oz, what are your two bads?
My first one is, this really is just a vehicle for Will Ferrell to be Will Ferrell and Danny McBride to be Danny McBride.
Oh, God, yeah.
And so those are okay. Like, again, I'm fans of both actors. Like, I'm fine with their comedy style. It's fine. But it's like, you call the movie Land of the Lost, and it's really just a Ferrell McBride joke fest with this razor thin reference to the show. Like, I never watched Land of the Lost as a television show. Obviously, it was successful enough for them to warrant making a movie from it, but it just feels like you could have plugged these two into anything, and they would have just doing what they're doing. So it's like, to see them actually test themselves to act would be nice once in a while.
Yeah.
And the second one is just the cupping of Holly's boob thing.
Yeah.
Early on. It's like, there's literally one female in this cast. And they still have to
violate her.
Yeah, sexually handle her. It's like, come on. They still had to doll her up. At one point she like perfectly rips the legs off of her pants to give her short shorts, and ponytails or pigtails her hair. It's like, like, why does every female have to be sexualized?
It reminds me of in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. They're the big fight scene on that bug planet.
Yeah, with like the giant pillars.
Yeah, and Natalie Portman's character gets like slashed across the stomach by something.
Yeah,
and it rips that like the bottom half of her shirt off to like basically give her like a crop top that she's now running around in. Yeah,
got her midriff showing.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah, it's like it's not needed. Like, especially in Star Wars.
That couldn't have happened to Mace Windu.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to see Sam Jackson running around with his midriff out.
Yeah. And so it's just that, like, you have one female character, give her some dignity. Like,
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So that's my
and surrounded by schlubs too.
Yeah.
It's not like they're like the men were sexualized in any way.
No.
It's chubby Will Ferrell, chubby Danny McBride, and then Jorma Taccone covered in hair.
Right. And then I guess the only other time we get other females in the movie, they're topless.
Yeah, they're also hot babes.
Yeah, which we're walking Will Stanton right into it. Like, that's what he needs. This guy. So that's my second bad, is just that cupping of her boobs and over-sexualizing the very few females in this movie.
Yes, couldn't agree more.
What do you got for your bads?
My two bads, the first one is just the lead characters really aren't that likable. Mm-hmm. Like, Marshall's very standoffish and distant, and I mean, basically he's a jerk, and Stanton's not too far off either.
Right.
Like Holly's okay, but like, again, she's basically there just to be, to get captured and be the eye candy and, have her boob grabbed, and
right.
It's just the characters, they're not that likable, and so that it makes it a little harder to engage with. It's, again, kind of referencing what we talked about at the top of the show. This was that stage when, like, Will Ferrell as a race car driver, and like, at least those characters had some charm to them.
Yeah, Will Ferrell is a Christmas elf. Like,
yeah, exactly. So that's my first bad. The second one is just, I want nothing to do with Matt Lauer.
Yeah.
at the time, that those revelations had not come out, and he was still the
Right.
big Today Show star. But like, I look back, it's as I fired this movie up to watch, it's like, oh, that's right, Matt Lauer's in this.
Yeah.
Ugh. Like anything that glamorizes him or brings him attention or money. Ugh.
Yeah. I agree.
Go away, Matt Lauer. Those are my two bads. Oz, what's your one for Land of the Lost?
Knowing that we have got interdimensional travel and time and space, etc., do you think Chaka and Jar Jar Binks are related? Because if you could have, if you could have closed your eyes, I could have. But like, if you close your eyes, like they sound very similar. Like it's just that kind of character. A little, obviously Jar Jar had a little bit more extensive vocabulary, but they just kind of rub me the same way, of this like irritant but necessary sidekick.
Yeah.
Like, and then just Chaka. It's like Misa Chaka.
Of course, I'm thinking, and I can't say it out loud because we're a PG podcast, but I'm thinking of the South Park version of the Jar Jar character, Misa Wana.
Yeah. Go find that, kids.
Yeah. Look it up. Season 3, South Park.
So that's my is Chaka and Jar Jar being.
Yes, I think evolution. They're not too far off in their genes there. Yeah.
So what's your
My and they did try to explain this a little bit in the movie, but like, how does Holly understand Chaka so well? She's like, oh, well, like I found this archaeological site or whatever, but it's like, come on, like it's a series of like grunts and chakas.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
And she understands everything he's saying, word for word, dialect. Like she gets it. She speaks Chaka.
Yeah, there's no misunderstanding at all, because how do you practice speaking Chaka before you meet a Chaka? Like, it's like, I read a lot. That doesn't mean that you are fluent.
I took AP Chaka in high school.
It's like, you've never met anyone who speaks Chaka. How can you practice and be so fluent in Chaka?
I think you can earn the seal of biliteracy in Chaka in Illinois. Yeah. So that's my one.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, Land of the Lost. That's week 3. We have two more weeks.
We do. Because we chose to do this to ourselves.
Yeah. Next week we are going to cover Dukes of Hazzard.
Them Duke boys.
The Johnny Knoxville, Stifler, Jessica Simpson comedy.
Stifler. I was reading through the cast because I've never seen this. I've never seen.
I don't think I have either.
I was reading through the cast, and there are some legit actors in this movie.
Yeah.
Let me bring it up here. Like Jodan Baker's in it.
Oh, I love Jodan Baker.
I know, right? Like, and again, the Dukes of Hazzard is just unabashedly Southern. Like, even the TV show, it just so leaned into Southern culture.
Yeah.
And so they cast like Southern actors, like Jodan Baker, like he's got that thick Southern accent.
Oh, yeah, it's molasses rolling off your tongue.
Like Willie Nelson is in the movie.
Okay.
I mean, like Burt Reynolds is in the movie. Not that he's Southern, right. but a lot of those movies, like Cannonball Run, and a lot of those things took place in the South, and or appeal to kind of like the Southern culture.
Yeah. Yeah. So Dukes of Hazzard for next week. Speaking of Jodan Baker, we're both Tarantino fans.
Mm-hmm.
And so, have you listened to any of his podcast?
I have not.
It's Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery, who's also,
of course, yeah.
But they used to both work at the same video store before they made it. Video Archives out in California, and when Video Archives went under, Tarantino bought the entire collection, like everything in the store, and he has it at his house.
Okay.
And so each week of the show, or each episode of the show, I should say, it's just Tarantino and Roger Avery picking and watching some of the VHS tapes from the collection.
Okay.
And then tying them together somehow, and then just being Tarantino and Roger Avery.
Mm-hmm.
The man is, I mean, we've known this anyway just because we're fans, but it's just the in-depth knowledge that he has about film and cinema, as well as the connections he has because he's Tarantino, to where he could just go find the people that were in these movies and talk. I mean, it's a really fun show. It's just Tarantino being Tarantino, just completely unfiltered, but not like, it's not like the grating acting of Tarantino in his movies, where he's completely insensitive to anything.
Sure.
But it's really like a perfect, like, I feel like the podcast format is perfect for him because he gets to just nerd out.
Yeah.
And so the website they have is pretty cool because they have links to all of them. Well, I've been trying to hunt down the digital copies of every movie that he's covered on his show. And I've got them in Plex. I made a playlist out of them, and I'm trying to watch them as I go through, because it really is, it's the kind of movie I really enjoy watching, where they weren't hits when they came out and they're easily forgotten, but they're just a ton of fun. And so, well, I will say that, like, the first one is a movie called Cocaine Cowboys, which just the title alone, like, okay, it's, I'm not gonna, Andy Warhol's in the movie as Andy Warhol.
Of course.
Like,
of course. Yeah.
But it's, you know, a rock band is on the brink of superstardom, but they've been making it by smuggling cocaine from South America. Well, like, they lose their final job is to smuggle $2 million of cocaine into the country. Well, like, the way they were doing this is, like, an airplane would fly over and drop the bag. They would ride up on their horses, get the bag, and then go to the distributor. Well, the airplane pilot flying over sees a cop car, freaks out, and continues flying and drops it later. Well, so the bag's not at the drop site. So now this band finds themselves as, like, the marked men, because the South Americans believe they've just stolen the cocaine because it's their last job. So it's just fun. Like, Moonraker, I think they covered that in the same episode. And so
Cocaine Cowboys and Moonraker.
Yeah, exactly. But you can almost, like, even without listening, you can see Tarantino just blabbing on until he's connected the two, you know. The next movie I want to watch is Clint Eastwood directed 1982 Firefox, a movie I've never even heard of before.
I've heard of it, but that's about it.
Soviets had developed a revolutionary new jet fighter called Firefox, and so Clint Eastwood's involved somehow.
So he shoots it with his 45 Magnum, and
but
it
a lot of these movies are like that, like mid 70s to mid 80s kind of vibe. Cafe,
like semi low budget.
Yeah, like Cafe Express. Never heard of. An Italian laborer foils anyone who tries to stop him from selling espresso on a night train to Naples. Like, and it's it's got 100% of the tomato meter. The Keep, Demonoid, Piranha, Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill, Alice, Sweet Alice, Happy Birthday to Me. I just stumbled across this one a couple of weeks ago. Michael Douglas movie called Coma from 1978. It was really Michael Crichton written and directed. It was really good. A young doctor at a hospital, played by a woman, starts noticing a pattern of strange occurrences with patients. Healthy patients are suddenly developing complications and ending up in comas. And she starts investigating, and then what she reveals is astonishing. Rip Torn is in the movie. It was really good. I really like that kind of vibe. But The One-Armed Executioner, Welcome to Blood City. He's got Dark Star on there, Carpenter's first movie. Blind Rage, starring Fred Williamson. Five friends get together to decide to plan an operation to rob a bank. The main difference between this and other bank robbing gangs is that all five men are blind. So it's five men joined together to rob a bank. And then, of course, you wouldn't have any list without Tarantino covering a movie called Women in Cages. Like,
of course, yeah.
It's kind of all over the place. So I've currently got 57 movies in this playlist. But it's Rodan, Straw Dogs, Rollerball. it's a really fun podcast.
Okay.
You know, so and it's Tarantino just being it's Tarantino and Roger Avery, but it's Tarantino, like,
yeah,
because he just never shuts up. But it is fun. I'm also reading Cinema Speculation, his book that came out. Got it for Christmas, and so that's that. I'm waiting on that one. I'm taking that one on vacation. That'll be my beach read.
Got it.
But I don't think Dukes of Hazzard is going to show up on his list.
You never know with Tarantino.
I could see him, honestly, I could see Tarantino being a big fan of the show.
Yeah.
Just because it feels very accurate for what the Southern culture.
It had kind of a little pulpiness to it.
Yeah. And so, but no, it is a fun podcast. So, you know, if you ever get tired of listening to reruns of our show,
which I can't imagine you would.
I mean, come on. You have sat yourself through a dozen viewings of Land of the Lost. So clearly listening to old episodes of our podcast. I have listened to a couple of them. They are fun. There are times I'll go back. Kind of how, like, we'll put a movie in just so we want to see a certain scene. I'll go back to certain episodes just to listen to certain, like, jokes that we've told.
Yeah, well, if I need a chuckle, like if I'm down and I need a chuckle, I'll pull up our Mad Max and
fridging.
Yeah, the fridge. I think that was our finest moment right there.
Yeah. It was a good time. But we'll be back next week to cover Dukes of Hazzard. So social media wise, you guys can find us Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. There's a link to Patreon down below if you'd like to be our fourth. We're trying to fill a baseball team full of Patreon subscribers. Mm-hmm. Right now we just have middle infield covered, but
we got pitcher, shortstop, and second base.
That's right. So we'd love more because we're greedy like that.
It's all about the money.
So, but yeah, for next episode 85, we just wrapped up.
Wow, on the road to 85,000.
That's right. We'll get there soon. So every episode unlocks another 1,000 of episodes. But the math will work out. We'll catch
it. It does. It makes sense.
We'll get there. So, all right. Well, for Let's Talk About Flicks, I'm Oz.
I'm Curtis.
And we'll see you guys next week.